you're installing this failsafe filter alert, you want to install it in a place where you're going to see it from the helm. And on my boat, this actually is a place where I look at from the helm. So this is probably where I'll install it, and I'll install it in a surface mount configuration, probably right about here. We'll pull out the template and take a better look at what we might have to move around to make that work. Here's our diesel fuel filter that's attached to our Westerbeek engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the line right in there, and we're going to put our sensor. So the sensor can sit anywhere between the fuel filter itself and the engine. This is what the engine looks like from the front. So you can see it's the outlet of the fuel filter goes into the starboard side of the engine there. So that's where we're going to put the sensor. At this point, what we've done is we've drained the filter of fuel. This isn't necessary when you're actually installing this on the top of a Raycor 500 or 1000, but when you're putting it in line like we are, it's good to just keep the boat clean. Okay, what we have here is all the parts to put this in line, which is also available from DigiVac. We have a 3/8 ID hose barb, we have a brass T in the middle, and another 3/8 ID hose barb for the engine side, and then we've got our stainless steel double hermetically sealed DigiVac 72-501 sensor that's going to be doing the sensing for the vacuum in our fuel line. Now we'll put all this together with some thread sealant of your choice. Just make sure it's safe for diesel fuel. Okay, now what we have is the inline fittings in place and sealed up, and then we have our fuel line that's going to the engine on the left side there, and then on the right side we'll put another fuel line and put that on the other side of our filter. This is what the sensor installed with all the lines look like. Now we've got coming from the fuel filter to the sensor, and then from the sensor down to the engine. Now what I'll do is go through the fun of bleeding my diesel engine to make this all work. Again, with the Raycor 500 or 1000 with the UNF type of DigiVac sensor, the bleeding is not required. So this is where the device is going to go. This is the template that comes with the kit, and what I decided to do is use a hole saw, although you don't need any holes bigger than the actual cable feed-throughs. But doing a surface mount application, so I drilled a hole for the mounting hole in the top right and the lower left, and then a guide hole for the hole saw in the middle, and then we'll make a little hole so the connectors can fit through. So here we are, we have a prepared wire. This is how to install a weather pack connector. Ran some custom cabling, so we're doing that. These are industry standard. And then we're going to put the purple cable seal on the wire itself. Then we're going to pick out what's called a cable sleeve. We're going to install the cable sleeve in the weather pack tool. Part number of the weather pack tool is also in the DigiVac manual. Then what we do is we insert the weather pack connector inside the tool and then crank it all the way down. Afterwards, we got a nice male sleeve with the cable seal as well. It's going to make a nice connection as soon as it's all plugged in. Here we've got our red, black, and our shield wire. So here now what we do is we take the cable sleeves that are all installed in the wire, and we're going to put it in the weather pack connector itself. And we have A as the shield, and that's the exposed wire that we covered with a little bit of conductor or heat shrink. Red is going to be the hot part of the sensor, and then black is going to be the minus part of the sensor where we actually take the reading from. And then so we've got A as the shield, B as the hot, and C as the minus part of the sensor. So the weather pack, it's difficult to see in this video, but is actually labeled A, B, and C. The cable side is the male sleeve, and the unit side is the female sleeve. Okay. Then we finish it off just by clicking that closed. If we ever have to take one of these things off, we can just take off the connector, reasonably easily, and then have a little less work to, a little less bulky thing to actually fish through a boat. Okay, we're just connecting the actual wires. Of course, my house power is off right now. So we got the ground securely connected. Next, we're going to take the power, and as you know, the marine standard now is yellow for ground. So for those of you Heritage 12 boat guys, black doesn't mean ground all the time anymore. And then installing the red into the positive part of the breaker. Now, typically it probably makes sense to have this directly connected to the engine on-off switch. However, I've chosen to wire it to a breaker itself because I want to keep it on when the engine isn't running, so I can take more readings and have a little more control over it. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually connect these things up. So this is my sensor wire coming from the sensor that we installed on the engine, and this is the weather pack connector on the back of the unit here. We plug that in, then we plug the power unit in, then we close this guy up, and we should be able to see our filter alert come on. Here we are doing a bit of a sea trial, and we were just motoring at about 1 inch of mercury, 1.1 inches of mercury. And now we're sitting after rest at about 0.6 inches of mercury. This is the vacuum that's been built up in the line, and there's nowhere to go, so it just sort of stays there. So that's a good thing. We're going to start it up and see what she does.
Now we're running about 2,000 RPM. We're going right around 1.2 and 1.3. We're all green, everything's good. Here we're at low idle. It's still about 1.1 to 1.2 inches of mercury. Here we're about 2,500 RPM, and we're at about 1.2 to 1.3 inches of mercury. Still settles in at that number. Okay, now we're going to try the test where we're kind of cruising along here at 1.1 inches of mercury, and then we're going to go ahead and throttle up, and you'll see the change in inches of mercury.